Welcome to the Uncollared podcast. I'm Father Jason.
And I'm Frank Fontana. And on this show, we believe there's something powerful in the search for the truth.
No topic is too big or too small. No questions are off limits.
And that is a good thing because I like to question everything.
So settle in and join us for some laughs and some deep thoughts and
maybe even some enlightening moments here and there.
We sure hope so.
Yeah.
This is the
Uncollared podcast.
Do you ever want for more? I mean, I know you chose this life,
right?
Right?
Yeah.
But you're also like this good-looking dude who's like super personable.
Mm-hmm.
Everybody likes you. I gotta imagine at some point that you're like, dang, I wish I could get that Ferrari. That guy's over there.
I mean, we always have that. It's a good thing to want those things.
Yeah.
So absolutely, we when I see something nice, I'll actually in the way that I can try to I guess consume the object. I guess you could say,
So like if I had the Ferrari, you'd be like, hey, let's go for a ride.
Absolutely.
Let me drive it.
Absolutely. Well, I was able to use your Jeep today. It was really nice.
Yeah.
Sahara. I like the E version, so it's nice. Yeah.
Right.
So, because I do enjoy things.
Yeah.
And I don't think there's anything wrong with that.
Yeah.
But the lifestyle that I've chosen is a missionary one. So you can have nice things, but you have to also not be attached to it. You have to let it go. So say they send us to Brazil. Right now I have the newest iPhone.
Yeah.
But they don't have iPhones or whatever. I got to use what
Did
they
you
got
have to buy
there.
that?
So it goes off the account.
Oh.
Actually, I got this, believe it or not, off of one of my followers on Instagram.
Really?
Yeah, one of my followers where they said, how can I support your channel and things like that. I was like, well,
That's cool.
a little donation.
Send him a picture of a Ferrari.
Yeah. No, it's for the apostolate. Yeah.
Yeah.
So I said, well, I could use a better camera, and so I can edit all on the phone. And I got a nicer phone. So there is a little balance between having nice things, for the mission, I guess you could say,
Right.
or having them for yourself. So you got to be really careful. So for example, I love different sports and things, and one of them I learned here in Chicago was golf. So I got to be careful though, because it can be seen as, oh, here's this priest who goes off and golfs all the time.
What's wrong with that?
Well, it doesn't. I mean, if you take a vow of poverty, it doesn't come off. You do want to be credible. So if you're preaching detachment in your, especially your vows, so we have 3 vows: poverty, chastity, and obedience. You want to be credible, and it's not all about vanity, but it's also about convictions. People can tell if you're real or not.
Right.
So, for example, if I'm preaching chastity and hey, live chaste lives, you got one wife. Don't be sleeping around, et cetera, et cetera. And then I'm flirting with all these beautiful women all the time. Well, how credible?
Other conversation.
Yeah, that's a whole other conversation. So sort of with the poverty concept, if I'm always on nice trips, traveling here, and I'm posting on my social media,
But you kind of are.
I sort of am, but
I mean, let's be real. I've seen you on yachts. I've seen you drinking scotch. I've seen you smoking cigars.
Yeah.
We've smoked cigars in my garage.
Right.
So, but I don't think there's anything wrong with it.
Okay.
In my opinion,
right.
I know you have your rules and regulations and stuff, but in my opinion, you're human.
Right.
Right? You can only suppress human desires so much until it backfires.
Right.
And there's plenty examples in the church of that.
True. Very true.
If we're being real.
Yeah. No.
Right? And I don't know if you want to go there yet, but definitely, in my opinion, you living a little bit of a life with your chosen craft.
Right.
Right? Just because I chose to be a TV radio personality, have a media company, does that mean I can't do anything else? I can't, I didn't take the extreme vows you did.
Right.
But, I do have boxes and I have parameters in my life.
Right.
But that doesn't stop me from experiencing more and doing more, and I shouldn't be judged for that. You shouldn't be judged for that.
Yeah, so going back a little bit, what we committed to is a lifestyle in a community. So that's what we committed to. And it could be in this country, it could be in another country. So our commitments go to how we live together. So if together as priests, you know, sort of like you take your family and you really like amusement parks, but say none of your family likes it, or you're just gonna go because you like it, or or maybe you're training them to enjoy it and why you enjoy it.
Right.
You know, and after a while they're like, oh, we don't really like it. And then you become this, you know, hardcore guys like, we're going to amusement parks. We're all gonna have fun.
Do you have to do that? Like with your
so with our
your peeps?
community, yeah, with our people, like we do have to find the balance between what is okay and for our sort of family. So right now I'm with 5 priests. And so together we figure out what can you do to enjoy and relax? You know, like one of our priests has his own little dog, you know, and that's fine. But for some other groups, some other communities, like that's not fine because maybe whatever, maybe you know, they don't like them, maybe they're allergic, maybe they think that's a distraction to the community. But in our community, like it works out well, and you know, for example, some of our priests are a little more introverted, so we do like to pray more in silence than singing hymns and sharing ideas and things like that. So that's our frame set. Like that's sort of my point of reference, the sort of the community. So enjoying like a round of golf, like some of the other fathers will also golf too. So there's nothing wrong with that. They don't, you know, and together we're like, is this something fun? Is it okay? Is it, you know, if we were all driving Ferraris, I don't know. It might seem, you know, it might, well, you know,
it would actually be awesome. I think everybody would want to come to your congregation.
Right. Yeah.
Father Ferrari.
Yeah. Yeah. And on the other end, you have some of these like, you know, these mega churches where some of the pastors are flying jets and things like that. There's technically nothing wrong with it, but then it creates a little bit of a doubt or a scandal, thinking, okay, hey,
sorry.
So where'd you get this? You know, where do you get all this money from? Type thing. So there's a balance.
I feel like those guys are like, I don't see them like you.
Okay.
Like the pastor versus the priest.
Okay.
I don't know the difference.
Right.
But it seems like you always read the stories in the headlines of the pastors who are scamming their followers and like buying the jets and justifying all the donations going to their private jet because they got to go on holy mission, you know? So I do think it's different when you put it in like a side-by-side comparison. But, you know, on this topic of money, you know, what I found interesting about what you told me in the past, specifically in, you know, your, I don't know what you call it, sector, or like the legion.
Yeah, the
like,
congregation.
The congregation, right?
Religious congregation.
You guys are actually, you lead a business group?
Yeah.
And
business group too, yeah.
I know some of the guys in the business group, these guys are ballers, you know, they're heavy hitters. And I just, my question would be like, what grants you the right, who's never owned a business, who's never made millions of dollars, maybe raised millions of dollars for the church, which again is a skill set. How do you lead a business group when you don't actually run a business or have had to start something from scratch and go through all the trials and tribulations of an entrepreneur?
Right. So don't tell anybody, but I really don't know what I'm doing. No, they're, I mean, so in the business world, I believe essentially it boils down to the same principle. We're all men in the end, and we all want the same thing. So working at different high schools, working at different youth programs, and then working with the business crowd, you realize, you know what, these guys are the same. You know, the same ambitions, the same sort of trying to move ahead, the competition, the drive, the importance of self-worth. I see this
Jedi mind trick going on here that you're doing. So you are a master of understanding personalities and I don't want to say manipulating, but the ability to maneuver and position and guide in that respects, even people with so much power.
I think you nailed it. Honestly, it's to your point. It's not like I have an MBA. It's not like I've studied these things, but I've learned to in life, I've learned to be very interested in what people are interested in. So you start learning jargon, I literally just copy and paste what they say and then give that advice to another business guy. It's not my advice.
Did you learn like EBITDA and all these?
Oh yeah, different terms and different, what is it? And different things that work for investments and when to hire, what is it? Hire slow, fire fast, stuff like that, so you start hearing different things. And then a great way of learning and working with them is using philosophy, where you ask a lot of questions. It's like, say I want to tell him whatever, he focused more on your family and certain employees. I'll instead of telling him that, I'll ask him, so how's your relationship with your top 5 employees? Like, what does that look like? Explain. So they're correcting themselves, autocorrect type thing. And then they're super smart. So just ask them, what do they think?
Right.
And
do you find these guys like emotionally immature most of the time, or do you feel like their egos are a huge play in this?
The business guys, I see them as, I think their number one skill set is drive. Like they have this fire and passion in them, and often it's been quite suppressed.
Yeah.
By laws, by their spouses, by society. So they tend to get nasty very quick, and they know it down inside. They know that they're not really themselves.
So you're like, I wonder, because like sometimes advice is hard, right? Like you might have to piss people off.
Okay.
And what I mean by that is like, say, like you brought up like, let's just say, a spouse or a business partner.
Okay.
And sometimes business is crude, as we all know, right? And you could be cutthroat, and you might have to do things that are unpleasant. Hopefully not. But most of the times in big business, you're making really tough decisions. They're going to hurt people,
right?
And sometimes I just feel like there's no holy way to do that. Like you just gotta drop the hammer when you gotta drop the hammer. So like I get it. Like you could tell me all day, like, oh, pray on it, pray on it. I'd be like, okay, fine, I'll pray on it, but I'm still dropping the hammer. I can maybe drop it a little later, but I'm gonna drop the hammer.
Right. Yeah. I mean, so on this point of passion.
Yeah.
I mean, we're all made of, we all have in us a certain skill set and a certain energy, and it's a sin, or it would be on us not to tap into that. So is it going to have collateral? It is. But it's worse not to even try. So we know we're not perfect. So go, I would say in business, go for it. You're going to have to step on some people's feet, but then go back and assess how it's going.
Right.
So I advise these business guys, okay, don't just, obviously you got to go for your goals and get the money and things like that, but then go back and see what effects have been taken so that you're not a naive entrepreneur.
Yeah.
They say the best entrepreneurs as scholars is, they say beware of the one book scholar. So beware of the entrepreneur that just knows how to do one thing, because they can get a lot of money real quick and they can lose it. Look at the athletes. They have special finance guys because they get their money and they just spend it because they have no clue.
Right.
They're not finance guys.
Right. It's like the Mike Tysons of the world.
Yeah, exactly. So you got
hundreds of millions and then go bankrupt.
So you got to figure out where your passions. A good entrepreneur also invests into charities, and like they know how to give money away, because they know when you invest with no return, they know eventually that mindset is going to give.
What's the rule of thumb? You give 5%, 10% away of your earnings.
Yes, it's called tithing.
Tithing,
10%.
Yeah.
So it's so technically what's known as tithing is 10% of what you make, you give away to whatever, the church or, some of these mega churches.
Government that I got to give 30% to?
Well, the government sort of sees themselves like a church. So they're like,
they've been tithing me for quite a long time.
Like 50%, right?
Yeah.
So, but it is good to have a mentality of, it's much more of like a deeper principle, tithing. When you're able to freely give and expect nothing back, you have that sort of that free mindset. Like I love the example, and anybody can do this type of tithing, but like when you say, sorry to change topics here, but when you're trying to get, when you're you're trying to start a family up. You know, like every time a couple's intimate, it's not, you know, I use marriage prep. It's not like it's going to work out every single time, you know, thanks be to God. Right.
Yeah, right.
But anyways, there's sort of a moment when you're open to that possibility, both partners, and they're saying, well, if we get pregnant, great. And if not, well, then
good practice.
We tried, you know. Now, obviously one thing is, you know, the intimacy out of love, but then the intimacy trying to procreate. So there's the way that this world is set up is if we don't have a little bit of that openness of tithing, we can get so into it and so possessed of it, we start turning into monsters. You know, that's where there's cloning and like, you know, trying to do like those petri dishes and you make all these embryos.
Wait, do you believe in cloning?
Like the principle of it?
Like the idea that like people say Jamie Foxx has been cloned, like the actor, and like certain like politicians have been cloned to be able to create multiple versions of them.
Yeah, I mean,
what did you mean by cloning?
Well, cloning where you take somebody's DNA or you take the sperm and you take and you make I guess a production, you know, there's a great movie on this, a whole production of what's it called? The movie
is the Brazilian boys, like the one where they reproduce Hitler's.
No, it's a different one.
Similar concept.
Well, they clone people and they send them out to like another planet.
Yeah.
And then when that person like has a kidney failure or something, they go to that planet and take their clone and take the kidney from there because it's theirs. And then so that planet, I can't remember this movie. It was really fun. Was it? I think so. Yeah. I think that's the movie. I can't remember. It can't come to me. It doesn't come to me right now.
I was thinking of The Boys of Brazil. It's a movie where they clone Hitler's like genetics and
was it good?
Great movie.
Oh, was it good? Okay.
They make.
No, it's not Gattaca, but that's another clone movie too. Yeah.
Yeah, by the way, it's our producer Katie over on the side over there. So you're into like conspiracy stuff a little bit?
No. I'm no. What I was headed for.
I'm into it if you are. Like,
conspiracy?
Go deep down the rabbit hole.
I'm not conspiracy. Like if we landed on the moon and things like that, I'm not.
You think we did?
I think we did. I like the fact that people try to debunk it, or there's different opinions.
We didn't. I absolutely think it was produced in a Hollywood studio.
You think so?
And so did Armstrong.
Okay.
Who was, quote, the first guy to step on the moon. He actually slipped up on an interview. And you can find it, you know, if Katie can pull it up. Yeah. It's real. Like he said, no, this was not, we never went to the moon. We shot this in a Hollywood studio.
Yeah, I like the concept of what is true and what's not true. I do like that. Conspiracy theories, like me coming up with them, I don't like to produce it just because my mind just spins everywhere. But I do like to hear. I mean, why?
Other people's conspiracy.
Oh, okay, that's interesting. Yeah. Like, why do you like those types of theories? Like, is it because stimulating or like you search truth? Like, what is it?
I'm a critical thinker.
Okay.
I don't always look at things at face value.
Okay.
I know there's always more to the story.
Got it.
Especially when it comes to the government and you know Hollywood and all those know pop culture things.
The church.
We're fed. The church could fall into some of that. I'm not going to lie. I do have a lot of qualms with the church.
Hey, that's why we're here. That's why we're doing this.
But yeah, like I think that, you know, to ask the questions instead of just saying, oh yeah, I saw that on the news. That's real.
Absolutely.
You know, we've been fooled for generations of thinking that the media is the ultimate end all be all for what exists in this world. And it's just not true.
Okay.
You know, and this last 4 years or so has really proven that.
Right.
With the, you know, the rise of social media, news, you know, independent news outlets and individuals with their own accounts going out there, like documenting and getting behind the scenes of things that we never had access to before because social media didn't exist in the capacity we had it.
Right.
So I believe a lot has been exposed that is actually, I get my news more so from individual online news feeds than I do. I don't ever watch TV.
Right.
Genuinely, I just don't believe a lot of stuff that they talk about.
So you bring up this critical thinking, right? So are you do you like challenging different mindsets? Or you just like calling people's bluff out? Are you do you like exposing, like what drives you? Because obviously you're in the media world. So you know, something has to really get to. So is it sort of this search for the truth? Is that where you're trying
It's a
to?
little bit of search for the truth for sure. And it's, again, I just don't think most people are, when it comes to the media and stuff, are truthful. I think there's an agenda behind everything.
Right.
And I think it's one thing to look over here while this is going on over here, wildfires in California, while this, mRNA vaccine is being created and, launched and all that stuff. COVID definitely brought in a lot of that, honestly.
Right.
Like when COVID hit and we were all asked to shut down and, stop our businesses and all that kind of stuff, something just didn't feel right. That's when it woke up the beast. I was like, no way. And then I started doing some research and found these videos and saw stuff with the Vatican and the Pope and, all this, like how far it goes back in generations. It did, I'm going to be truthful with you, it did kind of, I grew up Catholic. I grew up going to, Sunday Mass and all that stuff. My mom still goes. I just fell off because the things I've learned and the things I saw were like, there's just not alignment here.
Okay.
You're saying one thing, but then I'm seeing a whole different thing happening over here.
Right.
So it's just made me just doubt and curious. And, I still have faith. I still am spiritual. I still believe.
Right.
I'm like, on that with one finger.
Yeah.
Here's the Catholic Church, and here's me just holding on like this.
Well, you have me here today, so obviously, I think it's at least 3. Come on, give me 3 fingers at least.
I'll go with 2.
Okay, 2 fingers. Okay.
No, I hope throughout this experience with you is that I do learn more, and maybe you can answer some of these questions that I have.
Yeah.
And then I'm sure people watching would have that maybe are afraid to ask their own priest.
Yeah.
Because of the way I grew up with priests, who was like old dudes, hardcore.
Right.
Sin and go to hell.
Yeah.
Like sit, stand, kneel.
Yeah.
Like if you don't, I'm gonna slap your knuckles. Like that kind of mentality. So for me, it was never like this awesome experience and finding, oh my God, I found the calling. And no, I actually found more solace in studying other religions and spiritualities. I never considered myself a religious person, ever.
Yeah.
Right? I did grow up in the Catholic faith. I found in my early teens, I was introduced to this woman who was a Buddhist and a shaman and all these, alternative spiritualities, who really opened my eyes to there's more than just, one God or one way.
Okay.
There's a universal energy, so that was where I started.
You started being interested, right?
I felt it. I was like, oh, I could totally relate to that. I understand that there's a vibration and an energy that exists in the world, whatever you want to label it.
Right.
Call it God, call it Buddha, call it, whatever. But for me, that resonated, and I went deep into it.
Okay.
And I didn't go to temples and all that kind of stuff, but I studied it and
right.
read. And that's when my shift happened for me.
Got it.
I hear stories of people in the church like, oh, I found God and I became a different person. And great. For me, it happened in a different way.
Right.
And now as I'm older, my kids are at Catholic school and, I'm around priests a lot. And it struck my curiosity. I'm like, all right, maybe I missed something. Maybe there's something I'm not seeing. Maybe it's all the same thing. Yeah. And it's just a choice of which, insert, A or B, to represent that.
Yeah. So this is sort of why you have me, we want to have this type of conversation, right? What I like about your perspective is you're hungry. You're this, I love people that are passionate about something. So it might be off or it might be weird, or I'm not saying you're any of that. But I love when people tap into some type of energy, they get passionate about it and they go all in.
Yeah.
Because eventually that will lead to only good things. Obviously if it's something corrupt, and when it becomes selfish, then that toxicity really, you can see it, you can feel it, and the conscience, and people know.
Yeah.
So as long as people, in other words, as long as people are headed towards the right principles and right foundations, they're going to eventually end up with something very universal that we can all get to. Yeah. So for example, this whole, I guess you can call it woke movement. I mean, there's something good in it in the sense of, people want to be respected, people want to be understood. That's something good. But when it becomes so angry and blaming, and that something there is off. I don't know if that makes sense. So on your search for whatever you want to call it, a balance with your inner self, faith, as long as you're not continually just pointing fingers, then we're on a good track.
Yeah.
So same thing with conspiracy theories. Like, as long as we're not, the government's a fraud and this,
yeah.
As long as we're trying, knowing these truths and doing something about it, I think that's awesome. That's sort of what makes me motivated too. Like, I love working with people like you, just to like understand. No, just to understand your mindset and hear you out, and learn from you too. Like, everyone who I've worked with, I've learned so much. So
and that's what this show is about. Really,
yeah, exactly.
Is this really kind of opening the mind to other ways to look at religion, spirituality, situations.
Right.
And actually, we're running out of time here.
Oh, whoa, it's already done?
Blew by that quick, but it's the first of many great conversations we're going to have. Guys, thanks for tuning into our first episode of Collared.
And Uncollared. Wait.
Well, you're supposed to say Collared. I'm Uncollared.
Yeah.
He's Collared.
There you go. I got the collar going. Yeah. So. Awesome to have you guys join us for our episode. Each of the episodes, we'll try to do a little summary at the end, so stick around and also have a little takeaway. Our episode today focused on poverty, and poverty is more about that detachment from things. Our world tries to give us things to consume them, hold on to them, and it sort of allows us to be very distracted, and it sort of makes us slaves. Like, what do we do with our boat? What do we do with our extra house, right? So this episode allowed us to use poverty more in the sight of faith. And as a priest, I use this, I guess you could use it, and you're going on a nice golf outing or having a nice scotch with someone. It's an opportunity of apostolate where I can, the other person's more relaxed. I can talk to them. It makes them feel, it doesn't put them on edge. So I'm able to talk to them more about God and to direct them and maybe give them a tip or two. So I would say the takeaway, what's the takeaway? The takeaway is to live this freedom of spirit, this poverty of spirit. St. Francis encouraged us to do that. And by doing so, we can approach any activity. We're not afraid of anything fun, knowing that as long as it's for service and for giving glory to God. God bless you, and we'll see you in the next episode.